Welcome to this last video in our series about electromagnetic astrology. In this video, we will take a closer look at the sunring because the sunring explains the impact you receive from the electromagnetic field. And I am Malena, and I am one of the creators of Sunring Astrology. As you may remember from the last video, the sunring consists of 4 points in the zodiac. And the most important of these points is the ascendant. And the ascendant is the point that is rising on the eastern horizon at the time of a person's birth. So it's a point that is ascending. That's why it's called the ascendant. And the ascendant is very important, not only in sunring astrology, but overall in all kinds of astrological systems. The ascendant is equally important as your sun sign, and it describes the part of your personality that you express to the world, to people around you. So it's how people perceive you together with your sun sign. Another point in the sunring is the so-called medium coeli. I use Italian pronunciation. That is the middle of the sky. It's the point due south in the birth chart. And this point describes how your personality, that is mainly characterized by your sun sign and ascendant, slightly gets another flavor when you are at work. So this is a little bit how people at work or society at large perceives you. And here you can also find your highest potential when it comes to doing good for humanity. Then another point, the third point in the sunring is the so-called descendant, the part of the sky that is descending on the western horizon at the time of your birth. This point describes the kind of shift or flavor to your personality when you are alone, or perhaps together with someone that is very close to you, very intimate. So this is a part of your personality that most people never see, and that you yourself are perhaps not so familiar with. And the last point, the fourth point in the sunring, is the so-called bottom of the sky, imum coeli, the point due north in the birth chart. And that describes a part of you that was more visible when you were a child, but that gradually diminishes as you get older. So all these points in the sunring explain the impact from the electromagnetic field, and it shows us as humans we are complex and dynamic beings, and it shows this complexity and how we are not the same when we are with friends as when we are alone or at work. And this is so elegantly described by these points in the sunring. And now I'm going to show you an image of what it looks like. It's actually a very simplified version of a birth chart. So here we see a very simple image of a birth chart with a little person in the middle of a circle. And the middle of the circle represents Earth. So, as I've told you before, astrology is geocentric. It studies how we humans are affected by everything that goes on around us. So we are in the middle of everything. Here you can also see the points in the sunring, because the circle around this person describes the ecliptic. It's the path that the sun and the moon and all the planets take over the sky. So they rise in the east, where we have also written ascendant, and then continues south and then descends in the west. The bottom of this circle, where we find imum coeli, is behind our back or below the horizon, because the axis between east and west describes the horizon. So above the horizon, the upper part of the circle or the birth chart is the day side of the of the chart, the part of the sky that we can see. And the other part is on the other side of Earth. If you look closely at this image, which may be a bit difficult if you watch on a mobile, but you can check later on a tablet or a computer, there is a little symbol in the upper part of the circle. It's a mini circle with a dot in it, and that is the symbol for the sun. So this person was born in the middle of the day because we find the sun close to the south in the birth chart. You can also find the moon on the bottom part of the birth chart, close to imum coeli or north. This means that the moon was on the other side of Earth when the person was born and not visible in the sky. As you can also see, there are green lines dividing the circle or the ecliptic in 12 equally sized zones. They are 30 degrees each. 30 times 12 is 360 degrees. We get a full circle. And these zones in the circle are, of course, the zodiac signs, which are, as we have explained previously, zones, division of the ecliptic. And the division of the ecliptic is only this symmetrical and equal, with equally sized signs at the equator. So this is a very simple image of a birth chart, and you can make it much more complicated. But when I learned astrology, when I started to read books on astrology and study it, this was more or less what my own birth chart looked like. Highly symmetrical. You can see the axis between east and west, south and north, or between the ascendant descendant and medium coeli-imum coeli, that they are forming a symmetrical sort of cross in the birth chart. So if we go from the ascendant to the medium coeli, that is 19 degrees of the circle, and if we continue to the descendant, we get 180 degrees of the circle, and we continue to imum coeli, and we have 270 degrees of the circle, and when we get back to east, we are at 360 degrees, one revolution or turn around. And my birth chart looked like this, very symmetrical, and I thought everybody's birth chart looked like this. So I was like, okay, that looks nice. And then the next birth chart I looked at was my sister's, but it didn't look this symmetrical at all. And now I will show you another image to show you the difference. And this time I will show you a slightly more complicated image because I have used Astrology. I have plotted in the birth data of a fictive person just to show you what it looks like. I must say also that I have cleaned it up as well, so I have sorted out lots of details. So if you go on an online calculator to check where's my sun, moon, all the planets and so on, it will be much more messy image because there will be many more details in it. But now I will show you how it looks like. Here we have the image of this fictive person, and as you can see, we don't have a little person in the middle of the circle, but the middle of the circle is, of course, still Earth. And then we see the axis from east to west, and that is the axis between the ascendant and descendant. And if you look closely at the image, you can see that it says ASAC at the eastern point, which of course stands for the ascendant. And then you can also see there are colored symbols around the circle. And these colored symbols stand for the different zodiac signs. So here we don't have the green little lines dividing the circle, but we have them, the division in the outer part of the circle. And here we can actually see this zodiac signs plotted out. If we look closely at the circle and at the ascendant, you can see that next to the ascendant is a green symbol. So the ascendant is within the area of the green symbol. The green symbol is a symbol of Taurus. And this means that this person had their ascendant in Taurus, which means that their expression, that their personal outwardly expression is has well, they will be seen as Taurus, and Taurus is a so-called fixed sign and an earth sign. So this person will have some sort of grounded flavor to their nature. They will feel secure and safe and calm, and they will enjoy the beauty in life. You can read more about Taurus and all the other signs on our website, but this is a person who loves to enjoy life, but not in a hectic way. And on the opposite side, we have the descendant. And for this person, the descendant is in Scorpio. And Scorpio is a sign which is a little bit secretive. It's often rather negatively described, but it is a water sign that is also fixed and that analyzes or thinks in depth, that have interests or that they are very passionate about. So even if they don't share it to the world so much, so they can be perceived as this easygoing person, but when they are interested in something, there is passion. And now this person will not be perceived as a Scorpio. The sun is in Aquarius, so this person will mostly be seen as a mix of Taurus and Aquarius. But when that person is alone or with their partner, there will be something of Scorpio in that person. Now, the problem with this, birth chart is that the axis north-south that you can see here in the image is tilting. This is not a symmetrical birth chart, it is tilting. And this is what it looked for my sister. She was like, why is this axis tilting? It looks odd. And I was like, well, that's what it's supposed to look like. That is what you get when you plug in your birth data in these astrological software calculators. And she was like, okay, but then it says like exactly as with this image. My medium coeli is in Capricorn, and that's I'm not like Capricorn at work, and I agreed. I know my sister very well. Of course, we grew up together. I know her as a child, as a person, and we have also worked together in this project, for example. So I know there's definitely nothing Capricorn in her. It's actually a horribly bad fit. So I was like, what is happening here? This is simply not correct. That is so odd. And not the imum coeli in Cancer was equally incorrect. So we were like, okay, this is very odd because I had experienced that with my birth chart. It was a perfect fit. Everything was symmetrical. It looked good, but this was simply wrong. And then my sister said, well, I think we should just make this symmetrical because then I will be in Aquarius. Medium coeli will be in Aquarius, and that's a good fit. That works. That's who I am. In a larger social context and so on. So I was like, I agreed. That was the best fit. That worked. So I was like, but why, what is happening here? And I was looking at other people as well, and I experienced the same thing, that when you make everything symmetrical, there is a high degree of explanatory power in these 4 points. But when everything gets skewed, you as an astrologer don't get that much help from them. And the birth charts tend to become more skewed the further north you go. It also depends on the exact time you are born, but this is I couldn't understand why this was happening or why I got these results. So I understood I really had to learn what's the basis of these ascendant, descendant, medium coeli-imum coeli. How is that calculated? I mean, what's the idea behind it? And that's what we are going to go into now, because it will reveal quite a lot. So first I looked at the ascendant and to say, so how is it calculated? And if you remember, if you are at the equator, say that you are in Kampala in Uganda, and when you see the sun and the planets and the moon rising, they will rise up and go right above your head. But if you are where I am now in Stockholm, Sweden, quite close to the Arctic Circle, the ecliptic will not be over your head. It will like be slant. It will be like very low in the sky. It will differ also over the year. In winter, it will be lower. In the summer, higher. But the ascendant is calculated. I mean, the mathematics are quite complicated, and I can't say that I understand everything. But you look at the angle in relation to the horizontal plane. So if you're in Uganda, it will be the angle will be almost or 90 degrees. But as you go further north, the angle in relation to the horizontal plane will be much less. And this is how you sort of calculate which part of the energy field that will sort of approach the person, because it will differ depending on where you are on Earth. And as I said before, I think the zodiac was developed at the equator a long time ago, because there everything is symmetrical. And we have to remember that the constellations in the sky and all these points, east, south, west, and north, they are just references. They are references in the sky to describe something that we cannot see. But these reference points, when we move everything further north, they may not work that well, because everything looks different. For example, if I stand here and have a tree, the tree will look like it's very high above me. But if I walk 100 meters from the tree and look at the tree again, that tree will look much smaller. This is because of human perspective. And we are simply further away from the tree, and it will not look the same. I will show you another image of how this can look like. So here we have an image where we can see what the ecliptic looks like at the equator and far north. As you can see, at the equator, the observer can see quite a lot of the ecliptic. Actually, it's like half of the circle, whereas when the person is far north, it doesn't look the same. We don't see the whole expanse of the or 180 degrees of the ecliptic. So when we move this perfect clock to the north or to the far south, everything will get skewed. So you can imagine at the equator at night, you can see one part of the sky ascending with like equal speed. So it will be like a tick-tock clock. But when you move this clock further north, it won't work so well. And what actually does work is the ascendant and descendant. And I think we can be quite sure about that, because this is also why I think as the ascendant is so widely used and so important in astrology. But the medium coeli, descendant, and imum coeli, they are not that important or that much used. Astrologers normally look at planets, they look at houses and so on. And of course, medium coeli a little bit, descendant not so interesting, imum coeli more or less not at all interesting. So I was thinking that if the medium coeli, imum coeli axis is often misplaced in birth chart, they will not be so helpful for astrologers. And maybe that is why they don't think they are so important, at least not as important as I think, because I think these points are much more important in describing a person than the planets and planetary aspects on the houses and the lunar modes and aerobic parts and all of those things. So then, after understanding that the ascendant and descendant calculations are okay, and I can agree with them, and that was also what I saw with myself and my sister and everybody else, that that is correct. So how do you calculate or know where you put the medium coeli or imum coeli in the birth chart? Well, apparently it is the intersection between the meridian and the ecliptic. And the meridian is an imaginary line from north to south at your place of birth. So if I'm now I'm in Uganda again, and I have the ecliptic above my head, and then the north-south line will go like this, and there we will have due south, the medium coeli, and at the bottom we will have imum coeli. However, if I'm far north, the ecliptic will be low in the sky, and the intersection will also be like, it will be sort of skewed or different compared to Uganda. We won't have that symmetry. So I think this way of calculating medium coeli simply doesn't work, because the model, the system, was developed with its reference points at the equator. And when you move it further north or further south, some things may work, but others won't. And then was the next sort of issue. So if that way of finding medium coeli and imum coeli isn't correct, and I think I got a great solution if I just made everything symmetrical. I just made an sort of artificial, or I just, in the birth chart, instead of having this skewed axis, I just, as with my sister, I just put a straight axis instead and got a really great fit. And I've seen that with other people as well, that I know well. Checking these things with people you know very well is the ultimate test, I think, because when you know them in all these different contexts of life, that is when you can actually check if your model works or not. So I then understood that, well, it seems like we get a good fit if we just make everything symmetrical. We don't bother about the birth meridian. We just look at the ascendant. That's actually enough, because if you know the ascendant, you know that medium coeli will be 90 degrees from the ascendant. And then you have, of course, the descendant, 180 degrees from the ascendant, and then you will have imum coeli 270 degrees from the ascendant in the birth chart. So that's like easy, but I couldn't find, I was like, but what is the explanation for this? How can I back this up? I mean, I have to have some sort of logical explanation for this. And this is what I think. And the solution has, as with everything else, come with viewing astrology as a method of describing the electromagnetic field and how it impacts us at birth. So I think the only determining factor when it comes to the sunring and all these points is the energy approaching us from the east, the ascendant. As you remember, everything moves from east to west in the clockwise direction. And this means that with all these factors moving, there will also be some sort of ripple effect in the electromagnetic field. So the electromagnetic field will sort of also move from east to west. And that energy will sort of be the part of the energy field that will approach the baby most directly. It will be like bam in Uganda, and it will be bam here in Stockholm. But still, it will be the part of the energy field that will approach you most directly, because the other parts of the field will be beyond you and above you. So this is why we only have to look at the ascendant. And I think the ascendant is not just like one frequency. It is actually a complex of frequencies that we really cannot describe. But one way of seeing it, or what the masters of the universe could do, was like, let's look at this energy in different sort of directions. So, and that is where you get these other points, which they could use these these geographical points when they were at the equator. Geographical points won't work if we move far away from the equator, but they could do it. So the only thing you need to know is the energy from the where your ascendant is, in what sign, because then you will have the rest of the points in the sun ring. So I think I got another, what can you say, not proof, but idea about this when I saw a short video, and it was where they were showing three semi-transparent images with the cymatic patterns. And cymatic patterns, they are made via sound and vibration. You get these mandala type patterns. So the image or the video showed they had three semi-transparent images with mandalas in pastel colors. And then they put these images above each other, and there emerged the image or the face of a young girl of perhaps 5 years or so. Then they took apart the images and just moved a couple of them, like 90 degrees, or if it was 180 degrees. And suddenly, when they put them together again above each other, there emerged the image of the same person, but now as a young woman. And then they put these cymatic patterns apart, and again turned, like if it was 90 or 180 degrees, some of them, and put them together again. And there emerged the same person, but now as an elderly woman. So it was like the time implosion. Here we see all of that person in all its context or stages of life. And I think that is the same thing we can do with the ascendant energy. We look at this energy, but at different sort of contexts of a person's life. And this means if you want to understand these points and this dynamic part of yourself, you only have to find your ascendant. So you can go, if you don't know it, you just use an online calculator. They are like Astrodienst, Cafe Astrology, AstroSeek, and you plug in the year, month, and day of your birth, and the exact time as well. And then you will get this birth chart image, and you will also get tables and loads of details with all the planets and lunar nodes and so on. But there you can easily find where your sun was, if you don't know that, but you probably do, where your moon sign is. And as I've mentioned before, we have a guide for the moon, which is very helpful because it will help you understand your emotional self. And then we also have guides for all ascendants or sunring guides with ascendant in Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, and so on. So once you know your ascendant, you know which sunring guide you will that is for you. And of course, everything that I've talked about in this video, you don't need to understand it, or it's just in-depth information to I mean, I think it's important to tell people about what's background, what's supporting this, instead of just accepting, yeah, this is a point, and this point is is important, but that point is not so important, and that other point here, the descendant, I'd rather talk about the seventh house instead. So I think we have to have some sort of idea what's behind astrology. But as I said, it's not important for you to know about. You can still use our guides. One thing that I would like to point out now, before you check your ascendant, is that if you are born north of the Arctic Circle, you would need a little bit of special procedure, because some of these calculation programs can give you the wrong result. So please read the article that we have written in, you can find it on our website, called How to Find Your Sun Ring and Moon, because that will guide you to the correct ascendant. I would also like to point out that if you are of Indian descent, you may have had a birth chart created for you at birth, and perhaps a partner horoscope as well. In India, they use a different zodiac. So if you are, for example, a Scorpio, according to Vedic astrology, you will be a Sagittarius here. So to use our guides and information correctly on our website, you may have to recalculate your sun sign and everything as well. So that's very important to know, because otherwise you will get the wrong result. So, well, this was everything that I wanted to talk to you about in this video, and I hope this series has been helpful for you and interesting, and that you have learned something new. So, thank you for listening.